Hello, everyone. This is going to be like a Why I Do Things mini episode. I haven't done these in quite some time now, mainly just because I've been trying to figure out how to collect my thoughts after the last episode, because I think I made myself look like kind of an unemotional, manipulative kind of person, which is not true, as if you watched the entire video, you would no doubt see me talk about feeling extreme empathy as a reaction. Wait, this is my team. Why am I shooting these? Um, as a reaction to experiencing bullying for like the first proper time in middle school. I had experienced bullying here and there while I was up uh, at my grandma and grandpa's house, but I had never experienced bullying like that. That was so in your face and cruel, um, that I could differentiate like whether or not it was good or bad. Because with my brother, like experiencing abuse from my brother, I always thought I was just the issue. The sense that what was going on was wrong or right just wasn't there, because I just felt like I was a fundamentally bad person and that I deserved everything he was doing, because I had no frame of reference by which to differentiate my experiences from those of others in order to say this is wrong or this is right. And so I ended up being in a situation where I was just confused about all of the experiences I was having. Whereas when I got into middle school, I had enough of a conscious mind to be able to tell, oh fuck, these are really bad things these people are doing here. I don't want to be like them. I want to do good things instead of bad things. Wait, I'm blue now. Okay, nice. Um, so I started going on this like justice crusade of wanting to do good things instead of bad things, and I became pretty obsessed with that idea for a while, just because I was seeing bad stuff, people doing bad stuff all around me all the time. It was making me really upset, and the intensity of those experiences that I had ended up just developing me emotionally further along than I was already developed. Because up to that point, I didn't really have like a proper mirror to copy emotionally from my parents or from anyone else, because my mom has a personality disorder, so her emotions were much more extreme throughout my childhood than they would be throughout anyone else's. I spent a lot of time alone, and my dad was either going through his bipolar stuff or just being very, very reserved. So it was kind of like a combination of the two things, of me being in situations where I had to manage what was going on with my parents more than they had to manage me, you know? That's how it felt a lot of the time, where it felt like I needed to be a peacekeeper of sorts in a lot of scenarios. And so there was a degree of suppression that I had to do in order to make it through those experiences. And as a result of that, I think it had me develop a deficit in empathy, or just a deficit in understanding in general. And this whole issue was exacerbated by me not being in school, obviously, because I didn't have relationships with other people to use as a frame of reference for like what human behavior should be in the first place. And so, oh fuck. And so I was just very confused. But at my baseline, I had a lot of empathy. For example, nuclear war. When I found out about what nuclear war was for the first time, I actually cried. I was just so upset at the idea of nuclear war existing, just like as a concept, that I just broke down crying. Um, and it was such a confusing situation for me that people like that would exist, that they would devise something like a nuclear bomb that could inflict so much harm on other human beings, and it really, really upset me. Um, and so that was the mindset at the time. I think I just destroyed our own base. That was the mindset at the time. And when you're coming from that basis of having like a higher degree of sensitivity or just like emotional empathy than other people, affective empathy, etc., while at the same time being in a situation where it's not being properly developed. Can I just not like get this car out of here? I don't think I can. Well, oh well. Yeah, so while you're not being properly emotionally developed at the same time, there's going to be a degree of confusion with things. And I think, when I talk about, for example, the way that a lot of the time my parents would call me a quote unquote boring child, that I was considered boring, that I was punished for being boring, it led me into a pattern of behavior where I just started telling tall tales all the time. I started presenting myself as larger than life, as more than what I was, and making things up just so I would have something to say, because I saw it as, the things that I have to say at my baseline, the things that I'm interested in, clearly are not being accepted. Whenever I wanted to share my identity with my family, it always felt like my identity, the things that I cared about, were not accepted. That in a moment where I was trying to share those things, I would be told to just be someone else. That those things were not okay to be interested in, and that I was wrong for being interested in them. I was wrong for being that person. And I think this developed into me just having no idea who I was for the longest time. I think that was a huge basis for a lot of my depression, is that I just had no idea who I was, and it terrified me. Because it's pretty easy to not know who you are when so much of what your day-to-day life consists of is just making things up in order to seem appealing to other people. Is just is just compensating for who you think isn't going to be accepted by people. And so like I would constantly be thinking about, how can I make the things that I say appealing? How can I make this more meaningful, etc. So I I like how I'm just actively shooting at my own thing. Let's see, what was I talking about? It's really late here. It's like 4 a.m. But yeah, it's very easy to not know who you are when so much of your existence is, again, just trying to appeal to other people. When so much of your existence is just trying to ward off the kind of treatment that I got, which was, again, literally experiencing physical retaliation for being who I was, or physical recourse, I should say. So that was my life. It was simultaneously, having confusion over what to do socially, and experiencing a deficit of empathy, because the very few social experiences I had as a homeschooler were all unnatural, and they were not the kind of mirroring that you're supposed to have as a child in order to go on the course of healthy development. It was more like a lot of what I felt I had to suppress. I had to constantly suppress who I was and what I felt, and in order to not just appeal to people, but what felt like what I needed to do in order to just survive. It's difficult. It's difficult to like properly aim in this game. is I'm really bad at first person shooters when I'm not playing with a controller. When I People always say that it's more accurate to play it with a keyboard. That's just never made sense to me. I always aim way quicker than I mean to. I always feel like I have less control over what I'm doing. It's really, really annoying. Like if I played Unreal on the Dreamcast right now, I'd be doing way better. Every single time I played Unreal on the Dreamcast, I've done way better. Um, but yeah, like when I feel like so much of what this YouTube channel is derived out of that core desire, not just to be understood, but to feel as though I'm not boring. Is that for the longest time I was just terrified of being boring because as a little kid I was told over and over again that I was. The things that I cared about and what consisted of my own self-concept was not accepted in my home, so I had to develop something outside of who I was, and that led me to just having no idea who I was, because when you're swept up in that spectacle of what everyone else wants, you begin to lose track of what you want. And this stands, I would say, I guess, slightly in contrast with the image that I presented in the last Why I Do Things video. Because in that, I was talking about having a very strong sense of identity and what was right. And that is not untrue. Those things were shown through my behaviors, and I stand by pretty much everything I said in that video. But at the same time, you also had this situation where I was bothered by many of the things that they said. Where I did want to be accepted by them on some level. It's just that I had to suppress so much of that desire, and in having wanted to be accepted by them, that ended up coming, like, that desire showed itself more through me just making up stories, me trying to make up stuff that was interesting, than me like directly changing my opinions. Basically, my opinions got stronger the more that they weren't accepted by my family. And I saw it as I just need to get so good at explaining things that they'll finally accept them. But as for, like my actual behaviors towards them, it was more like how can I present myself in the most interesting way that they'll find something in. And so it was this constant push and pull between being the person who between being the where did the guy's got a fucking tank? Being the person who had to make things up in order to foster a sense of acceptance, and also was told to just like not be yourself, and also had no real understanding of what normal empathetic people think like. And so it led to the kind of strange experimentation that I mentioned in the other podcast, until ultimately I ended up having that experience in middle school that made me have like a very personal emphasis on wanting to do good things rather than bad things. So that's a very rudimentary addendum to the last video. Basically, a strong, simultaneously a strong sense of like guiding values and correctness, while at the same time confusion as to who you are, and a deficit developmentally in the realm of how to be social and how to feel empathy. Even though, again, I experienced those things more strongly than other people. So it was more like a general lack of experience underpinning all of these things. So very complicated. Multiplicitous factors at play. I'm very tired.